Chapter 39 of Black Beauty. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. Chapter 39. Seedy Sam. I should say that for a cab horse I was very well off indeed. My driver was my owner, and it was his interest to treat me well and not overwork me, even had he not been so good a man as he was. But there were a great many horses which belonged to the large cab owners, who let them out to their drivers for so much money a day. As the horses did not belong to these men, the only thing they thought of was how to get their money out of them, first to pay the master, and then to provide for their own living, and a dreadful time some of these horses had of it. Of course I understood but little, but it was often talked over on the stand, and the governor, who was a kind-hearted man and fond of horses, would sometimes speak up if one came in very much jaded or ill-used. One day a shabby, miserable-looking driver, who went by the name of Seedy Sam, brought in his horse looking dreadfully beat, and the governor said,
"You and your horse look more fit for the police station than for this rank."
The man flung his tattered rug over the horse, turned full round upon the governor, and said, in a voice that sounded almost desperate,
"If the police have any business with the matter, it ought to be with the masters who charge us so much, or with the fares that are fixed so low. If a man has to pay 18 shillings a day for the use of a cab and 2 horses, as many of us has to do in the season, and must make that up before we earn a penny for ourselves, I say, 'tis more than hard work. 9 shillings a day to get out each horse before you begin to get your own living. You know that's true. And if the horses don't work, we must starve, and I and my children have known what that is before now. I've 6 of them, and only one earns anything. I'm on the stand 14 or 16 hours a day, and haven't had a Sunday these 10 or 12 weeks. You know Skinner never gives a day if he can help it. And if I don't work hard, tell me who does. I want a warm coat and a mackintosh, but with so many to feed, how can a man get it? I had to pledge my clock a week ago to pay Skinner. I shall never see it again."
Some of the other drivers stood round, nodding their heads and saying he was right. The man went on.
"You that have your own horses and cabs, or drive for good masters, have a chance of getting on and a chance of doing right. I haven't. We can't charge more than 6pence a mile after the first, within a 4-mile radius. This very morning I had to go a clear 6 miles and only took 3 shillings. I could not get a return fare, had to come all the way back. There's 12 miles for the horse, 3 shillings for me. After that I had 3-mile fare, and there were bags and boxes enough to have brought in a good many tuppences, if they'd been put outside. But you know how people do. All that could be piled up inside on the front seat were put in, and 3 heavy boxes went on top. That was 6pence, and the fare 1 and 6pence. Then I got a return for 1 shilling. Now, that makes 18 miles for the horse, and 6 shillings for me. There's 3 shillings still, that horse to earn, and 9 shillings for the afternoon horse before I touch a penny. Of course, it's not always as bad as that, but you know it often is. And I say 'tis a mockery to tell a man that he must not overwork his horse, for when a beast is downright tired, there's nothing but the whip that will keep his legs a-going. You can't help yourself. You must put your wife and children before the horse. The masters must look to that. We can't. I don't ill-use my horse for the sake of it. None of you can say I do. There's wrong lays somewhere. Never a day's rest, never a quiet hour with the wife and children. I often feel like an old man, though I'm only 45. You know how quick some of the gentry are to suspect us of cheating and overcharging. Why, they stand with their purses in their hands, counting it over to a penny, looking at us as if we were pickpockets. I wish some of them had got to sit on my box 16 hours a day and get a living out of it, 18 shillings beside, and that in all weathers. They would not be so uncommon particular never to give us a 6pence over or cram all the luggage inside. Of course, Some of 'em tip us pretty handsome now and then, or else we could not live. But you can't depend upon that.
The men who stood round much approved this speech, and one of them said,
It is desperate hard, and if a man sometimes does what is wrong, it is no wonder. And if he gets a dram too much, who's to blow him up?
Jerry had taken no part in this conversation, but I never saw his face look so sad before. The governor had stood with both his hands in his pockets. Now he took his handkerchief out of his hat and wiped his forehead.
"You've beaten me, Sam,"
he said,
"for it's all true, and I won't cast it up to you any more about the police. It was the look in that horse's eye that came over me. It is hard lines for man, and it is hard lines for beast, and who's to mend it I don't know. But anyway, you might tell the poor beast that you were sorry to take it out of him in that way. Sometimes a kind word is all we can give 'em, poor brutes, and 'tis wonderful that they do understand."
A few mornings after this talk, a new man came on the stand with Sam's cab.
Halloo?
Said one.
What's up with Seedy Sam?
He's ill in bed,
said the man.
He was taken last night in the yard and could scarcely crawl home. His wife sent a boy this morning to say his father was in high fever and could not get out, so I'm here instead.
The next morning the same man came again.
How is Sam?
Inquired the governor.
He's gone,
said the man.
What, gone? You don't mean to say he's dead?
Just snuffed out,
said the other.
He died at 4 o'clock this morning. All yesterday he was raving about Skinner and having no Sundays. I never had a Sunday's rest. These were his last words.
No one spoke for a while, and then the governor said,
I'll tell you what, mates, this is a warning for us.
End of chapter 39. Chapter 40 of Black Beauty. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit librivox.org. Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. Chapter 40. Poor Ginger. One day, while our cab and many others were waiting outside one of the parks where music was playing, a shabby old cab drove up beside ours. The horse was an old worn-out chestnut, with an ill-kept coat, and bones that showed plainly through it, the knees knuckled over, and the forelegs were very unsteady. I had been eating some hay, and the wind rolled a little lock of it that way, and the poor creature put out her long thin neck and picked it up, and then turned and looked about for more. There was a hopeless look in the dull eye that I could not help noticing, and then, as I was thinking where I had seen that horse before, she looked full at me and said,
Black Beauty? Is that you?
It was Ginger, but how changed! The beautifully arched and glossy neck was now straight and lank and fallen in. The clean, straight legs and delicate fetlocks were swelled. The joints were grown out of shape with hard work. The face, that was once so full of spirit and life, was now full of suffering, and I could tell by the heaving of her sides and her frequent cough how bad her breath was. Our drivers were standing together a little way off, so I sidled up to her a step or two, that we might have a little quiet talk. It was a sad tale that she had to tell. After a 12 months' run-off at Earlshall, she was considered to be fit for work again, and was sold to a gentleman. For a little while she got on very well, but after a longer gallop than usual the old strain returned, and after being rested and doctored she was again sold. In this way she changed hands several times, but always getting lower down.
And so at last,
said she,
I was bought by a man who keeps a number of cabs and horses and lets them out. You look well off, and I'm glad of it, but I could not tell you what my life has been. When they found out my weakness, they said I was not worth what they gave for me, and that I must go into one of the low cabs, and just be used up. That is what they are doing, whipping and working, with never one thought of what I suffer. They paid for me, and they must get it out of me, they say. The man who hires me now pays a deal of money to the owner every day, so he has to get it out of me too. So it's all the week round and round, with never a Sunday rest.
I said, You used to stand up for yourself if you were ill-used.
She
said.
I did once, but it's no use. Men are strongest, and if they are cruel and have no feeling, there is nothing we can do but just bear it on and on to the end. I wish the end was come. I wish I was dead. I've seen dead horses, and I'm sure they do not suffer pain. I wish I may drop down dead at my work and not be sent off to the knackers.
I was very much troubled, and I put my nose up to hers, but I could say nothing to comfort her. I think she was pleased to see me, for she said,
You were the only friend I ever had.
Just then her driver came up, and with a tug at her mouth backed her out of the line and drove off, leaving me very sad indeed. A short time after this, a cart with a dead horse in it passed our cab-stand. The head hung out of the cart-tail, the lifeless tongue was slowly dropping with blood, and the sunken eyes, but I can't speak of them. The sight was too dreadful. It was a chestnut horse with a long thin neck. I saw a white streak down the forehead. I believe it was Ginger. I hoped it was, for then her troubles would be over. Oh, if men were more merciful, they would shoot us before we came to such misery. End of chapter 40.